Mom demanded $18,000 for my sister's wedding. When I refused, she stole it. Weeks later, both faced fraud charges and lost a $250,000 trust fund. Look, as a 27-year-old boy, I've always understood that my mother played favorites. Growing up, you just accept certain things. Some children receive the spotlight, while others get the bill. I was usually the latter. My younger sister Isabelle was the golden child from the start, with private school paid for, a car given to her at the age of 18, and college tuition covered without her doing a single shift. Meanwhile, I was trudging through community college and working nights at a warehouse to pay textbooks for character development, or whatever. But this was a completely new level of chutzpah. It was a Thursday evening around 7. I had just returned home from my job at the engineering firm, still dressed in my work clothes, and was ready to take a drink and unwind. That's when my mother entered my apartment. Yes, she still had the key. With that expression on her face, I was about to make another mistake I would later regret. She did not even sit down. I stood there in my living room, arms crossed, and dropped it like a bomb. Lukas and Isabelle's wedding is in 3 months. She needs $18,000. You're going to give it to her. Not, can you help, or would you consider, but a straight-up demand for $18,000. I sat down slowly with my drink, attempting to digest what I had just heard. Mom, there is my entire savings account. I've been working on that for 4 years. Her expression did not change. That cold, calculated gaze she'd honed over decades. You do not need it right now. Isabelle is getting married. Today is her big day. Lukas, family comes first. Or did I raise you to be selfish? There it was. She has been using guilt and manipulation since I was a child. Paint me as the bad person for wanting to keep the money I earned from working 60-hour weeks and skipping vacations. I took a breath and remained cool. Mom, I worked my butt off for that money. Isabelle is 26. Her fiancé, Mark, has a job. They make twice as much as I do. If they can't afford their dream wedding, should they tone it back or save up? The wrong answer. Her face stiffened like concrete. So you plan to disgrace your sister? Allow her to walk down the aisle in a low-cost venue because her brother is too rich to support the family. Everyone will know that you declined. Your uncles, cousins, and everyone. The threat was evident. She would make me the villain of every family gathering for the rest of my life. Consider me the selfish son who let his sister's wedding fall apart. Never mind that I'd helped them before. I covered my mother's car payment twice last year, paid for Isabelle's emergency dental work, which included cosmetic veneers. But yes, I'm the greedy one here. I'm not paying for Isabelle's wedding, I stated firmly, looking her dead in the eyes. That's it. The temperature in the room dropped by roughly 20 degrees. Mom's lips tightened into a narrow line, and her eyes became dark. You are making a mistake, Lukas. A large one. Do not say I didn't warn you. She turned and stormed out, slamming the apartment door so hard that it rattled the frame. I sat in the silence that followed. That sickening feeling in my belly told me that this was not over. I should have changed my locks that night. Should have frozen my credit. I should have done a number of things, but I figured even she wouldn't break certain boundaries. Yes, I was mistaken about that. My phone was vibrating like crazy when I got up on Friday morning. My bank's fraud department missed 3 calls and sent 2 text alerts. My stomach fell before I opened them. I logged onto my banking app, and my worst suspicions were true. My available credit has plummeted. Nearly $18,000 in pending charges were posted overnight. My checking balance was unaffected. This was all on my credit card. The transaction history made me want to punch through the wall. Wedding venue deposit, $6,000. The catering down payment is $5,200. Photography package costs $3,400. Florist charges, $1,800. Dress adjustments cost $1,200. Reception decorations cost $600. The charges kept coming, all within an 8-hour time frame. I kept my credit card secured in my desk drawer. My hands were so shaky that I couldn't even dial the bank. I spent 20 minutes on the phone confirming information I already knew. Someone had used my card for a shopping spree, and they got my complete card information, including the CVV code. The fraud representative inquired whether anyone had access to my residence. My mother has a key, I explained, and she wanted the exact amount yesterday. The rep fell silent for a moment. Sir, I apologize, but you will need to submit a police report for fraud. We can begin the dispute process, but with family involvement, things could become problematic. I hung up and sat on my couch, trying to get my brain around it. My mother had broken into my apartment, found my credit card, and used it to pay for my sister's wedding, which cost nearly $18,000. Not asked, borrowed, or stolen. My friend Jonas, with whom I'd worked for 5 years, contacted right away to arrange our customary Friday coffee run. I heard something in my voice as I responded. "You sound like someone pissed in your cereal." "What happened, dude?" I told him everything. He paused for a time before saying, "Bro, you need to handle this now or they'll keep doing it forever." He was correct. It wasn't simply about money anymore. This was about my mother thinking she could rob me and not face any consequences. I called my mother. She answered the third ring, sounded pleasant, as if she hadn't just committed felony fraud 14 hours before. "Morning, Lucas. I hope you've had time to think about, you stole my credit card." I cut her off, my voice hard. "You stole $18,000. Silence, followed by her trademark patronizing tone. "Oh, don't be too dramatic. I did not steal anything. I just handled things. Isabelle needed assistance, and you were being stubborn. You'll thank me later once you see how lovely the wedding is. This woman has some nerve. She did not even refute it, did not apologize. She acted like she was doing me a favor. I need my card back now. And you are going to cancel all of those charges." She laughed. "Lucas, honey, it's already finished. The deposits are non-refundable. Simply accept it and move on. Besides, what are you going to do? Call the cops on your own mother?" There it was, the actual power play. She assumed I wouldn't press charges because of family loyalty and the way it would look, because she'd taught me never to generate a scene. Unfortunately, she had miscalculated. She had laughed too, but there was no humor about it. "So much for it. You have 72 hours to repay all of the money, or I will file a police report. You would not dare." I hung up. Then I called the bank again and officially reported the stolen card and all charges as fraudulent. The representative directed me through the next procedures, including submitting a police report, which I booked for the following morning. Then I did something that will eventually pay off. I called my father. My parents divorced when I was 21, around 7 years ago. Dad had relocated 2 states over, remarried, and started a new life. The divorce had been messy. Dad found Mom had been siphoning funds from their joint accounts for years. This is why he left. He picked up on the second ring. "Lucas, is everything fine?" "Dad, I need to ask you about the will you mentioned before, the one Grandpa left." Saturday morning, I arrived at the police station with printed bank statements, transaction logs, text message screenshots, and a timeline of events. Inspector Elena Rossi, the officer who collected my report, was competent but first dubious. "You're filing charges against your mother for credit card fraud?" she inquired, studying the documents. "Yeah, she stole my card from my flat and spent all of my savings without my consent. I have evidence that she was in my apartment." That caught her interest. I accessed the CCTV footage on my phone, which I had obtained from my building management that morning. My mother sneaks into my apartment in the middle of the night and leaves 55 minutes later with a tiny purse. Inspector Rossi's expression changed from dubious to really concerned. "Mr. Moreau, this is considerable proof. With this film and the financial documents, we can surely proceed. Are you sure you want to file charges?" "I am certain." She nodded and began the papers. They told me it would take a few days to process, that they would need to question my mother and Isabelle, and that I should be prepared for any backlash. I was expecting the wrath. This was part of the plan. Meanwhile, Mom had presumably told Isabelle about what had transpired as my phone began to fill up with texts from my sister. Angry ones. "How could you do this to me? My wedding is in 10 weeks. Everyone will know you're a selfish jerk. I hope you're enjoying spoiling my wonderful day." Actually, I was. I did not respond to any of them. I just screenshotted everything and saved it to my evidence folder. My uncle, Stefan, Mom's brother, called me on Sunday evening. He'd always been more sensible than her, but he avoided family conflict. Emphasis on typically. "Lucas, your mother called me in hysterics. Says you're attempting to have her arrested due to a misunderstanding. Uncle Stefan, she stole my credit card and spent $18,000 without my authorization." "That is not a misunderstanding." He exhaled. I'm not saying what she did was right, but is it truly worth breaking the family apart? Can't you simply figure it out? Ah, yes, I believe he meant that you just let her rob you in peace. She had an opportunity to put things right. She refused. This isn't about money anymore. It is about their believing that they can do whatever they want without consequences. There was a prolonged pause. Your mother stated something about combating this. She said she had resources. This made my blood run cold. Resources meant lawyers, which is why my discussion with Dad the other day was so crucial. After I hung up, I opened the folder Dad had sent me overnight. Inside was documents about my grandfather's inheritance, specifically the trust fund he established before his death 5 years ago. Grandpa had been a successful small business entrepreneur who sold his company for a fair sum of money. Divide the money among his children and grandchildren, according to the trust's strict terms. The key clause is hidden in legalese. Any beneficiary convicted of fraud, theft, embezzlement, or financial crimes against another family member forfeits their whole portion in the trust, which will be redistributed to the remaining beneficiaries. Mom's part of $200,000 is now held in a managed trust, which she will not be able to touch until she is 62 next year. Isabelle had a smaller share, $50,000, that would be unlocked when she was 28. The finest thing was that Grandpa had appointed me as the secondary trustee after Dad. If Mom was convicted of fraud, I would have the ability to implement the forfeiture clause. Every cent would be allocated to me and my cousins. Dad had warned me about this clause years ago when the will was read. Grandpa said he included it expressly because he had witnessed Mom's manipulative tendencies and wanted to shield the family from them. At the time, I assumed it was paranoid. Now, I had the nuclear option. Monday morning, I received a call from Inspector Rossi. Mr. Moreau, we have reviewed your case. Given the evidence, we are proceeding with charges. Your mother will be contacted this week for questioning. How about my sister? She intentionally profited from the fraud. That is difficult. If she truly did not know the money had been taken, we cannot charge her, but we will question her. After we hung up, I texted Isabelle. One basic message. Every charge made with my stolen card must be returned immediately. You have 72 hours. Her reaction arrived within minutes. Are you insane? The deposits are non-refundable. The wedding is in 9 weeks. I am not canceling anything. I responded, then you'll be getting married while Mom is facing with fraud charges. Your choice. You're bluffing. You will not do this. I did not answer. Wednesday morning, the bomb went off. Inspector Rossi and another police arrived to Mom's residence to question her over the fraud charges. My aunt, who lived close, sent me a play-by-play within an hour. They claimed the cops were there for 100 minutes. That mother came out pale and scared. Isabelle screamed at them from the driveway. That afternoon, my phone rang. Mom's attorney, Laurent Dubois, appears to have specialized in family law and white-collar defense. Wonderful! Mr. Moreau, I represent Claudia Moreau in connection with the claims you have made. I am phoning to discuss a resolution. My customer confesses that there was a misunderstanding over the use of your credit card. She's willing to set up a payment plan to repay the $18,000 over the course of 14 months. In exchange, you waive the charges. I nearly laughed. 14 months? A repayment plan? What about stolen money? Your client stole my card and committed fraud. There is video evidence. This is not a misunderstanding. It is a crime. The answer is no. His tone hardened. Mr. Moreau, I would advise you to reconsider. Bringing criminal charges against your mother will be costly, time-consuming, and irreversibly harm your family relationships. Is it actually worth $18,000? Yes, I replied bluntly. Very good, but I should tell you that we will mount a strong defense. This will turn ugly. Waiting for it. I hung up. After I hung up, my phone began to vibrate with texts from various family members. My Aunt Margot, Uncle Stefan, and even some cousins I seldom spoke with. Everyone was trying to get me to drop the accusations, to be the bigger person, to think of Isabelle's wedding. None of them labeled Mom's actions wrong. It was all about protecting her and making sure Isabelle's special day was not wrecked. Funny how family comes first only when they require anything from me. Everyone knew Mom favored certain people, controlled others, and spoiled Isabelle, but they all agreed because it was simpler than confronting them. So I was done making things simple. That evening, Jonas arrived with pizza and drinks. Since the theft, he had been checking in on me every day to see how I was doing. So they hired lawyers, he claimed. Does this suggest you're in trouble? Nah, I have surveillance footage, bank records, and her own admission from a recorded call. She's screwed, and she knows it. The lawyer is simply attempting to limit the harm. How about the wedding? I opened Isabelle's Instagram on my phone. She'd shared a long, dramatic story about how her toxic brother was attempting to spoil her special day and how families should support one another. The comments were largely positive. Her buddies did not know the whole tale. I told her she was playing the victim card too aggressively. Jonas shakes his head. Your family is just extraordinary. What's your overall goal here? I told him about the trust fund, Grandpa's forfeiture provision, and the $200,000 Mom may lose if convicted. He let out a low whistle. Wow, that's tactical. It is justice. She has spent my entire life taking from me money, thumbwim, and peace of mind. Now she is about to learn a lesson. And Isabelle is collateral damage. She could have done the right thing by refunding the expenses. Instead, she is playing the victim. Jonas raised his drink. I have to say, man, I really admire this. Most people would have surrendered by now. The following few days were a flurry of legal preparation. Inspector Rossi called with updates. The probe was moving forward. They had confiscated Mom's financial papers and discovered evidence of other suspicious activities. Mom has apparently borrowed money from family members without asking for it before. Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the incident, I received a call from Isabelle's fiancé, Mark. I scarcely knew him, but he sounded stressed. Lukas, man, we need to chat. Can we meet for coffee? It's just us. Interesting. I promised to meet him Saturday morning. Saturday morning, I arrived early at the coffee shop and settled into a back corner table where we could converse privately. Mark came 10 minutes later, looking worried and as if he had not slept in days. He sat across from me. Thank you for meeting me. I realize things are a disaster right now. That's one way to phrase it. He took a breath. Listen, I need you to grasp something. I didn't realize your mother stole that money. Isabelle informed me you had agreed to contribute to the wedding and were eager to help. I leaned back and studied him. He appeared real, and you trusted him despite the fact that I had never discussed the wedding with you. Isabelle mentioned that you two had a complex connection and that you were more comfortable communicating through your mother. I thought that was strange, but he trailed off and ran a hand through his hair. I wanted to believe her. We're getting married in 9 weeks. So, what has changed? The cops stopped up at her flat on Thursday to ask inquiries. I was there and overheard everything. When they went, I asked her directly if she knew the money had been stolen. She broke down and confessed everything. That caught my interest. Everything? Mark nodded, appearing unwell. Your mother did not only steal your card that night, she had been planning it for weeks. Isabelle scouted your place during a visit 3 months ago to find out where you kept your wallet, paperwork, and everything else. Isabelle suggested hitting the account at night when you'd be sleeping and less likely to notice immediately away. My palms tightened into fists beneath the table. So, Isabelle was more than simply a passive recipient. She actively participated. The whole surprised sister act was just that, an act. She worked out the details with her mother. I inquired, keeping my voice level. Yes, it appears that your mother has been attempting to figure out how to access your money for months. Isabelle is the one who pointed out that if you were asked directly, you would probably say no. Therefore, they should just accept it. I thought my trust difficulties couldn't get much worse. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Mark stared me in the eyes. Because I am not going to marry someone who helps rob their own brother. I called the wedding off this morning. The words remained in the air between us. I had not expected that. Did you call it off? I gave her the ring back an hour before I arrived. I told her I couldn't establish a life with someone capable of such dishonesty. She has been phoning and texting nonstop, but I banned her. He brought out his phone and showed me a series of increasingly anxious messages from Isabelle. Mark, please. And that was Mom's idea, and I'll make things right. Finally, you're going to regret it. She also stated that she would tell everyone that I abandoned her at the altar, cheated, or did whatever else to make her appear like the victim. I'm ready for it, though. I've already informed my family the truth. I respected that. Guy had a backbone. What do you need from me? Nothing, really. Nothing. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in this scenario is against you, and I felt you should understand the entire scope of their plans. There is more. Of course there was. Mark took out his phone again, opened his photographs, and showed me copies of text communications between Isabelle and Mom, plans for accessing my flat, and discussions about which vendors to book. Isabelle even sent a message stating that Lukas is too passive to truly press accusations. He'll fold as the wedding date approaches. That one stings. Can I get copies of these? I inquired. I've already emailed them to you. I figured the cops might want them for their case. We talked for another 30 minutes. Mark shook my hand as we parted ways. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're going through this. Your family has been making you believe you are the problem. You are not. Yes, they are. I drove home in a haze, my mind whirling. Isabelle had actively collaborated with Mom to rob me, while simultaneously posting on social media about how eager she was for her wedding, how grateful she felt, and how much she loved her family. The manipulation was astounding. That afternoon, I sent Mark's screenshots to Inspector Rossi. She called me 20 minutes later. Mr. Moreau, these messages have a tremendous impact. If Isabelle consciously helped plot the fraud, we can accuse her as an accomplice. Are you ready for that? I recalled all the times Isabelle had gotten away with stuff when she was younger. The lies, the stolen money from when we were youngsters, the times she destroyed my car and blamed it on me. Mom had always shielded her and made excuses. Yes, I answered. Charge her. The following week was chaotic. On Monday morning, Inspector Rossi brought Isabelle in for interrogation. Based on the texts Mark gave, they had enough evidence to charge her as an accomplice to fraud. She was arrested on Tuesday afternoon. My phone burst with messages from family members. Again, they were all incensed that I had allowed the police to arrest Isabelle as if I had personally arrived with handcuffs. The best part, Mom's lawyer phoned me on Wednesday. His tone was drastically different than previously. Professional panic. Mr. Moreau, considering the current developments with your sister's incarceration, my client would like to suggest a settlement. She will return the entire $18,000 instantly and reimburse all of your legal fees. In exchange, no. Mr. Moreau, please listen. I said no. Your client has several chances to put things right. Now she must face the consequences. The prosecution is threatening jail term, possibly 3 to 6 years, for fraud and identity theft. Is this truly what you want for your mother? What I want is for her to be held accountable only once in her life. And honestly, all I wanted was to stop receiving phone calls from pricey lawyers who charge by the minute. He attempted some additional angles, family healing, fresh starts, and focusing about the big picture. I shut it all down. Finally, he sighed deeply. Mr. Moreau, you're making a terrible mistake. This will haunt you. Nah, I can deal with it. Friday afternoon brought the moment I had been waiting for. Inspector Rossi called to provide an update. Mr. Moreau, your mother has been officially charged with credit card fraud, identity theft, and felony theft. Your sister has been charged as an accomplice. If convicted, they will both face lengthy jail terms. However, the prosecutor's office has stated that they are willing to consider a plea offer provided both defendants demonstrate regret and make full reparation. What kind of plea agreement? Probation, community service, criminal record, and no jail time if they comply and repay everything right away. But there is a catch. They'd have to plead guilty in court and publicly disclose their actions. Allocution entailed standing before a judge and confessing their misdeeds on the record. Public humiliation, legal penalties, and a lasting criminal record. When might this occur? The hearing is planned for Monday. Both your mother and sister would have to agree to the terms by the end of today. Otherwise, this will go to trial. I thanked her before hanging up. Then I waited. I wondered if Mom would swallow her pride and accept the agreement, or if her ego would demand a trial. My phone rang 2 hours later. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times and left a message. Her voice shook. Lukas, please pick up. We need to discuss Monday. The lawyer suggests we should accept the plea deal. We don't have a choice but to admit everything in court. Everyone will know. Please, there must be another way. Call me back. I did not respond. Saturday morning, Isabelle attempted to call from a new phone number, most likely a friend's, because I had blocked her. I did not pick up. She also left a voicemail. Lukas, this is me. I understand your anger, but please do not take this to court. Mark left me. The wedding is canceled. All of my friends are aware of what transpired. I have lost everything. I ask you to drop the charges. I'll repay you myself. I promise. I will obtain a job. I will do whatever it takes. Please don't make us go through with this." Her voice cracked at the end. Then she sobbed. I felt a twinge of something. Not really sympathy, but perhaps pity. Then I remembered the text she sent to Mom. "Lukas is too passive to follow through." I did not respond. It turns out I am quite passive. I'm sitting on my couch, passively watching everything unfold. Monday morning, I arrived at the courthouse. Inspector Rossi had informed me I didn't have to be present, but I wanted to see everything through. I wanted to see them confront what they had done. Call it closure or petty. I'll call it both. The courtroom was small, with the usual mix of defendants, attorneys, and family members. I sat in the back row. Mom and Isabelle were in the front with their lawyer, dressed as if they were attending a funeral. Isabelle's eyes were red from crying, and she was attempting to convey sympathy for the defendant. Cute. Marianne Keller, an older woman, presided over the case. Mom and Isabelle stood while the charges were read out. Judge Keller inspected them over her glasses. "How are you pleading?" The attorney cleared his throat. "Your Honor, both defendants seek to enter guilty pleas and accept the prosecution's plea arrangement." "All right, Mrs. Moreau. Miss Moreau, do you understand that pleading guilty means admitting to these charges on the record? Are you going to have a criminal history?" Mom's voice was hardly audible. "Yes, Your Honor." Isabelle only nodded, unable to respond. "Then, allocute and tell me what you did. This was it. It is now or never." Mom took a hesitant breath and started talking, her voice hollow. "I went into my son's apartment without permission in the middle of the night. I took his credit card from the counter. I used it to charge $18,000 towards my daughter's wedding expenditures. I did this knowing he was refusing to give me the money. I did this purposefully and without his permission." Judge Keller turned to face Isabelle. "And you, Miss Moreau?" Isabelle's voice crackled. "I helped plan it. I told my mother where my brother stored his credit card. I realized the money was being stolen without permission. I spent that money on my wedding, knowing it had been stolen." The courtroom remained silent. Judge Keller stared at them for a long time. "Beautiful. The court accepts your guilty plea. You will each serve 4 years of probation, complete 250 hours of community service, and pay $18,000 in restitution, with an initial payment due in 45 days and the remainder on a probation plan. You will also attend court-ordered therapy. Any breach of probationary conditions will result in immediate jail sentence." They both nodded in humiliation. As everyone poured out of the courtroom, Mom noticed me in the back row. Our gazes met. Hers were filled with tears of defeat and possibly sorrow. I thought, well, dandy. Outside the courthouse, Isabelle attempted to approach me. Her lawyer drew her back, most likely out of fear that she might exacerbate the situation. She called out nevertheless. "Lukas, may we please talk?" I walked to my car without reacting, got inside, and drove away. 3 days after the court hearing, my phone began to ring again. Mom comes first, followed by Isabelle and other family members. All of them wanted to communicate, work things out, and get past this. I ignored each of them for 72 hours. Allow them to simmer in the repercussions of their conduct. Allow them to wonder if I will ever speak to them again. Then, on Friday morning, I received a call from an unfamiliar phone number. I answered it out of curiosity. "Is it Lukas Moreau?" A female voice, professional and clipped. "Yeah, who is this?" "I'm Anna Vogel with Cornerstone Bank. I'm phoning about Claudia and Isabelle Moreau. They've designated you as the point of contact for a loan application." My blood became chilly. "Which loan application?" "They are seeking for a $18,000 joint personal loan to make the reparation payment to you as mandated by the court. However, due to their recent criminal convictions, the application has been flagged. We need to confirm some details with you." So they were attempting to obtain a loan to repay me, most likely at a high interest rate, which they would then blame on me in some way. I could almost hear it. "Lukas had us take out a predatory loan. I'm not involved in their financial decisions," I stated firmly. "Whatever they decide to do is their business." Understood. "I merely needed to confirm that you are the victim in their fraud case. We validated using public records, so that was all I needed. I appreciate your time." She hung up. I sat there thinking that the 45-day restitution period was coming, and they didn't have the money. Mom probably couldn't use her trust fund yet, and Isabelle didn't have any income. Good. That afternoon, I finally called my father. Lukas, I've been trying to reach you. I saw the court records. Wow, what a week. You could say that. Listen, I need to know how to execute the forfeiture clause in Grandpa's trust. My mother was convicted of fraud against me. That triggers the clause, correct? He was silent for a moment. Yes, it does. Do you want to go through with it? Yes, I want to enforce it. I will email you the trustee documents. You will need to notify both the court and the trust administrator. It takes around 75 days to process, but once done, her part is redistributed. You will receive the largest portion because you are the victim, and Isabelle's portion is subject to the same clause. If she is convicted of fraud against her family, she will also lose it. Both of them forfeit a total of $250,000. I let it sink in. $250 grand. More than enough to cover what they had stolen from me 14 times. Do it, I instructed. File the paperwork. That evening, I returned to my mother's house for the first time since the theft. Did not go inside, just sat in my car across the street, watching. The lights were on. I saw shadows moving around within. I wondered what they were saying, if they were arguing or crying, and who they were going to guilt trip next. My phone vibrated. A text from Mom. I know you are outside. Please come inside. We need to talk. Of course, she had seen me. Woman had hawk-like eyes. I got out of the car and went to the front door. It opened before I could knock. Mom stood there, appearing as if she had aged 12 years in 2 weeks. I stepped inside. Isabelle sat on the couch, looking equally devastated. Mom gestured to the dining room table, which was covered in paperwork, saying, "We need to discuss the restitution payment. Loan applications, budget spreadsheets, and bank statements. We do not have $18,000 in liquid cash. The bank offers a loan, but the interest rate is 23%. It will take us 7 years to pay it off." "Not my problem," I replied flatly. Isabelle's head snapped upward. "What do you mean by not your problem? You are the one who filed charges. You are the one who put us in this predicament. No, you are the ones who have stolen from me. How could you be so heartless?" Isabelle stood forward, her voice rising. "Family forgives one another. You are supposed to—" "I am supposed to what?" I cut her off. "Let you rob me and then thank you. That is not how families function, Isabelle. This is how abuse works. Also, I'm quite sure the family doesn't treat your residents like a heist movie, but maybe I missed the Hallmark special." Mom raised a hand. "Everyone should calm down. Lukas, please. There must be a way to work this out. What if we arrange a payment plan with you directly? Smaller amounts over time. You mean the 14-month plan your lawyer proposed, which I already rejected?" "We're desperate," Mom explained. For once, her voice was free of manipulation. "If we accept this loan, we will be in debt for years. Isabelle cannot find work because of her criminal background. I might lose my job if they do a background check for my renewed certification. We are drowning here." I glanced at both of them and saw the wrecks of their lives. Part of me was satisfied, but another part of me, the part that recalled family meals and birthday celebrations and Mom teaching me to ride a bike, felt a flash of something. Not forgiveness, not yet. Perhaps never, but something gentler than pure wrath. "This is what's going to happen," I explained softly. "You're going to take the loan. You will pay me back in full within 45 days, as mandated by the court. And then you'll both go to therapy. Real treatment, not court-ordered counseling. You're going to figure out why you thought it was acceptable to treat me as your personal ATM for 28 years. Isabelle opened her lips to argue, but I raised a hand. "And if you genuinely do the work, change, and demonstrate genuine contrition over the course of several years, maybe we can rebuild something. However, it will not be the same as before. It will never be the same as before. Because that version of our family was built on you two taking advantage of me, and I'm tired of being exploited." Mom's eyes flooded with tears. "Lukas, please. There is something else. The trust fund. Your father said that you are executing the forfeiture clause. That is our future. That is our security." So Dad had already contacted them. "Good. Yes, you committed fraud against me. Grandpa's trust is clear about what happens if you do that. Isabelle yelled, "That's $200,000. That is my inheritance. You cannot just take it. I'm not taking it. You are giving it up. There is a big difference. Grandpa saw it coming. He knew what you were capable of and included safeguards for the family. Now that protection is activated because you've proven him correct." Mom fell into a chair, face buried in her hands. "We will have nothing. There are no funds, nest eggs, or anything. You'll have what everyone else has, which you earned through your own efforts. Welcome to the way the rest of us live." The resulting silence was profound, broken only by Isabelle's silent sobs. I felt no triumph, only a strange emptiness, as if I were closing the door on a chapter of my life that I had never wanted to write in the first place. "I'm leaving now," I said, walking toward the door. "You have 40 days to make the restitution payment. Following that, we'll see." "Lukas, please wait." Mom's voice halted me on the threshold. "Do you dislike us?" I turned back. Instead of the manipulative mother who had stolen from me, I saw a damaged lady who had ruined her own family out of greed and partiality. "No," I replied honestly, "I do not detest you. I just don't trust you, and I'm not sure I ever will again. That is up to you to fix, not me." I stepped outside, got into my car, and drove away. 5 weeks later, the initial restitution payment arrived in my account on the last possible day before they were in violation of probation. I deposited it, watched my savings amount return to normal, and felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. 3 months later, the trust forfeiture was finalized. I received a check for $155,000 as my part of the reallocated funds. I deposited it in a high-yield savings account and did not touch it. That money represented my future, my emergency fund, and a security blanket that no one could steal. They could try, but we've seen how that works out. Mom texted me occasionally, updates on her therapy sessions, and apologies that seemed more real each time. Small efforts to rebuild a bridge between us. I responded occasionally, brief, courteous, but distant. Isabelle ceased contacting me when I didn't answer to her 5th or 6th apologies SMS. I learned from family that Mark had relocated to another state and was working at a call center to rebuild her life. Good. She needed to experience what true work felt like. They attempted to drown me with their entitlement and manipulation. Instead, they drowned themselves. I learned to swim. My mother abandoned me, then screamed I was the biggest mistake of her life. Now I'm fighting for custody of my baby sister. Original post. Hi, first time posting. I, 16 male, was born when my parents were very young, like my mother was 16 and my father was 17. Both families decided it would be the best for me if effectively my maternal grandparents raised me and my bio parents got to live their lives. That is not to say I didn't know who my actual parents were. This is not one of those situations like in movies where the mother pretends the daughter's child is actually her own, and everyone knew who my progenitors were. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23, and I was around 7, but that doesn't mean we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She didn't like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions or showed interest in my academic work, or took me to do any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings and said an awkward hi and did not even look at me. It hurt, even if, by that point, I already considered my grandparents to be more my parents than her. My father was still living away, they weren't together at this point, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun activities like going to the cinema or my favorite restaurant, things like that. But to me, he was more like an estranged man than a dad, because when I compared him to my friends' fathers who picked them up from school every day and went to their games and played with them on the weekends, I didn't understand why this man who I saw maybe twice a year was supposed to be the same. Anyway, fast forward to a year ago. My father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I wasn't really interested, although sometimes I complied. I don't hate him, I just don't know him. I even had a bedroom in his apartment, which is cool because he lives in the center of the city. Behind everyone's back, both my parents had started to hang out, and a couple months later, they announced they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument with them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient and I could lose all my friends, and the situation de-escalated by itself, although my parents didn't let go of the idea. My parents asked for me to spend more time with them, and this was particularly frustrating because even though I never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely do with my mother. I don't like being around her, and she's treated me poorly my whole life, and I feel like she's now only trying to save face because she knows my dad wants me there. Now on to the issue. Last week, they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced they were going to buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I can finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself in a corner and I said that was never the problem and that I just simply don't see them as my parents and don't want to live with them. That's when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only they wanted me to move in with them so we could be a family, but my mother was pregnant, so we were going to be a bigger family even. I was shocked, and I blew my lid on them. I told them they were the worst parents in the world, and that they abandoned me for 16, and now they were going to bring another child into the world and do the same to them. And they never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake they made and making me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist and dumping me to be other people's responsibility, and only now that they feel like they care, they want to be my family. My mother screamed back at me telling me I was a brat and that she wasn't going to make the same mistakes twice raising her second baby, and I told her she never raised me to begin with, and my father said that they were young and trying to do the best they could. Well, guess what? The best you could was pretty effing bad. I stormed out and went to my sobbing. I have been very depressed for the last week. They have both called and texted since, but I ignored them. My grandparents agree with me that I shouldn't move, and that my parents shouldn't expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they've treated me. However, they believe they are starting a new chapter of their lives now that they are more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I've also had time to think that I'm the same age my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still can't forgive them. Am I an asshole for the way I reacted to the news? Edit. Thank you everyone for the verdict of not the asshole. I feel better, and it has somewhat cleared my mind. Also, huge thank you to all that are commenting about how awesome my grandparents are. I'm planning on showing them this post so they can see how much everyone can see the amazing kind of people they are, and they deserve all the love and appreciation I could possibly give them, and more. I've also come to the conclusion that I have a lot of resentments and unanswered questions, as well as misgivings about the future that I need to set straight with primarily my father. He needs to know how I grew up, and I need to know why he abandoned me. I also feel like I need to warn him about my mother because I am worried about my sibling being abandoned and mistreated like I was, so I'm preparing a list of points and questions that I want to bring up to him, and we'll meet tomorrow or the day after, and I'll confront him with all of these to hopefully get some sort of closure or resolution. Relevant comments. More information on relationship with mom and dad. My father really wants us to be a happy family. When the three of us are together, you can see him beaming with joy, like he can't actually stop himself from smiling and making comments like, "This is everything one could possibly want," and stuff like that. I think probably my mother has sold him a completely different story on what our relationship was growing up when he left, and he doesn't seem to notice the tension between me and her. As far as my living arrangements, they would have to pull me screaming out of my grandparents, and they signed away their parental rights sometime after I was born, so I don't think they even have a legal foot to stand on if it came to that. But I just hope they can come to respect my decision. When you're ready, consider meeting your dad alone to find out information from him. I was thinking that too. I want to have a conversation with my father, mostly about my concerns about my mother and what to do moving forward. The more I think about this, the more I'm scared about my little sibling because I'm not sure how my mother would take care of them. I'm starting to feel like there's a lot of things that I don't know about the time when I was born and why I was effectively abandoned because my other set of grandparents, paternal, don't live far away, and I see them occasionally, but it's always more uncomfortable with them, they have other children and grandchildren, whereas my mother is an only child, so when I visit them, I feel like the odd one out because I'm usually alone in a big family environment. But about why my dad didn't reach out to me, I don't know, and I want to confront him about that. As far as I'm aware, when he was away, he didn't keep much contact with my mother either. This is just since he came back. That's why I feel like I need to talk with him and set things straight, because I feel so lost, honestly. There is no consensus on am I the asshole, but a majority of comments were not the asshole. Update post 1. Hi everyone. Thank you all for the responses. It really helped a lot. It's been an emotional couple of days and a lot has happened. My mind is a little bit dispersed, but I felt like I owed you all an update, and I'm doing to try and be as clear as possible. For those of you who didn't read my OP, the gist of it basically was that my 16 parents had me when they were very young, 16F, 17M. They got separated and left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents. My mother was around but couldn't care less about me, but my dad went away and we had very sporadic but positive contact. Now he's come back, they're back together, they're having a new baby and want me back into their lives. I refused and told them they're horrible and shouldn't have kids, which brings us to the OP. First of all, I shared my post with my grandparents and they were so surprised by it. They were very happy to see how many people commented about how amazing they are, and I, in turn, also took the opportunity to tell them how much I loved them and how much I appreciated everything they had ever done for me. They are my real parents and nothing is ever going to change that. There were some tears and they told me they loved me and how proud they were of me. They never thought of themselves as doing something special or worth so much appreciation. They were just taking care of family, but they are the best. After that, I started trying to collect my thoughts and arranging a meeting with my father to discuss the things that were bothering me. Why did he abandon me? Why did he think he could just reappear into my life like that I wasn't going to move in with them, and I didn't consider them my parents because they never acted as such, etc. We met at a park, and he went to hug me, but I stepped away and he looked hurt and he just apologized for what happened the other day and went into this speech about how we could try to transition into living together part-time and respect my boundaries, and I went blank. I didn't expect for him to talk, so I pulled out my phone and just showed him the post I made the other day, and he started reading it in silence. After a while, he read it all, and some responses, and he just asked me if this was true, and I said yes, and he asked me if I had questions he would answer honestly. I asked what happened when I was born, and he told me that when my mother got pregnant, all options were laid on the table. Abortion, adoption, marriage, Gramps taking care of me, only one of my parents taking me in. My mother was deadly scared of adoption. Editor's note, contextually, I think OOP meant abortion here, but someone else pointed out it could be adoption in this comment, so you decide. Because some religious group had told them some horror story about dead babies and mothers being killers, or some BS like that, so she wanted to give me up for adoption, but my father refused. He couldn't bear the idea of having his child living somewhere and never seeing him again, so he proposed to taking me in as sole caretaker and leaving his college plans to stay in our city. But his parents weren't thrilled with this plan and pushed him to go to college so that he could provide economically for me. They offered themselves to take care of me, but they were significantly older than my maternal grandparents. She was an only child and, at the time, they were just 40, whereas my father has 5 older siblings and his parents were already in their 60s. And since taking care of me meant taking care of my mother for a while as well. My maternal grandparents decided it was the best decision for them to take me. Also, immediately after I was born, my mother had postnatal depression, and the doctors advised them to not completely remove them from her side, or more damage to our relationship could be done, and my grandparents wanted her to eventually love me as a son. One thing to note about my father that I didn't mention in my OP is that even when he was in college, he worked part-time to pay child support, and once he started working in a law firm, he started sending more money to my grandparents and set up a college fund for me, which was news for me. My grandparents don't know about this, but my mother does, so I don't know what to do with this information. My father thought of me all the time he spent away and believed he had left me with a happy family and that he was working to give me a better life, but I followed his life through social media. He went to parties, vacations, had girlfriends, and did lots of fun stuff and barely had any contact with me, I asked him why couldn't have he made more of an effort to be a part of my life. Like, I understand if he needed to study in another city and work there, but it's no effort to call or text. Coming once a year just doesn't cut it. He looked ashamed and apologized to me, and I took advice that I saw in a lot of the comments here that I would forgive but not forget, and that maybe we can build a relationship going forward, but it will always be marked by his actions in the past. If he hasn't been my dad for 16 years, he can't start now. He seemed sad but accepted my conditions. I then told him about my concerns about my mother, told him how bad he treated me as a child, that I did not think she would be a good mother for my sibling, and that I wanted to go no contact with her. He said that after he left for college and they broke up, he would call her once in a while to check up on things, but that quickly ended, and when he came back, she explained to him that her and I had a great bond, and even though we didn't see each other daily, it was because I was in those teenage years, and that she loved spending time with me and had been a very hands-on mom. I told him that all that she said was a lie, and that she never cared for me. He obviously read the stuff from my post, but I also told him other things like when she would ask my grandparents babysitting money for taking care of me, or that she would call me annoying or disgusting to my face when we still lived together, and that severely messed me up. He was very serious and said he would talk to her, but that he really would not allow a child to be treated like that, and that he was sorry for letting that happen to me. Lastly, he told me I would have a bedroom in his house, but he understood perfectly that I would never live there. He was quite emotional at this point and got choked up at this point when he asked me if, even if I didn't consider him my father, I would consider his baby my sibling. I said, of course, that I planned to be a very active part in their life if I could. He started crying and asked if he could hug me, and this time I agreed. I am happy about the resolution of our conversation, and I really do believe he will be a good parent for my sibling. Once again, thanks to everyone who commented and took interest in my story. I don't know if I'll update again. Relevant comments. Find out who has the college money. My father has it. I have no idea why my bio mother kept the info from us, but my father stressed that the money was for me. Except she's back with him and could lie about it. I mean, I'm just assuming here, but for sure he's the main provider in the household, and I know he's been giving her all sorts of expensive gifts and stuff now that they live together, but that's not my problem, and I don't care. I didn't even know about these college funds until yesterday, so whatever happens between these two, honestly, is their business. As long as my grandparents or my siblings are not affected, he might as well buy her a diamond necklace with it. Your grandparents are great, but should have protected you from your mother better. It was hard for them, and I assure you at every possible turn, they have taken my side and have scolded my mother for her treatment towards me and taken measures about it, even forcing her to go to therapy. And they made it really clear to me, explicitly, that I was like a son to them, and they wouldn't choose her daughter over me, especially after seeing how she treated me, but it's hard for them because they love her. Child support payments. The monthly child support went and still goes to my grandparents, is the college fund that only she knew about, but that money my father said only he has control over, but I didn't know it existed, and I'm not particularly worried about it. I've never considered my father as a provider, and I've been making plans about my future in my head without this money always, and it's nice to know I have this now, but if it weren't here, I would find my way. Update post 2. So, a lot of you warned me about the shit hitting the fan, sort of speaking, when my bio mother talked with my dad, and today, that's exactly what happened. My father sent me a text early in the morning warning me about the fact that he was going to confront my mother and that he didn't want anything to splash to me, and reassured me that he believed me completely, and I braced myself because I expected for her to call me berating me or something. I truly don't care about what she thinks, but these past few days have been emotionally draining, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for another full-blown-out confrontation. Using Reddit to vent has been helpful, though. After a few hours, my mother pulled into our house and let herself in, screaming like mad and calling me every name in the book, saying I had ruined her relationship, and asking me why had I been blabbing about private matters that don't concern anybody. I said that my childhood matters to me and my father, who is also going to be the future father of her child, and that her actions ruined her relationship. She called me an asshole and said I was the biggest fucking mistake she's ever done in her life. I didn't know she could still hurt me, but that was a low blow. and I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point, and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us and entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears, and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed to my mother, "How dared speak to me that way?" My grandma soothed me a little and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped my mother a new one. They confronted her for telling me the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were in her for always treating me with disgust, and how many excuses they made for her thinking she was a child trying to raise a child, but she was now an adult, and her behavior continued the same, and they said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of that. They raised me, and she was allowed to have the life she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions ever, and I even heard them say that if there was any custody battle ensued over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she radically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I don't know what they said, but eventually they came into my room and my grandparents looked extremely serious, and my mother was red and crying and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I didn't respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after the debacle, and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting thing or something, and he confronted her about everything. Apparently, it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby, on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me so that whenever I visited them, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After he left, he made her promise she wouldn't contact me until they talked again, but there's my mother for you folks. I asked him to think about what's better for himself and for the baby, and to not hold today against my mother if he doesn't want to. Also, a thing that has come up a lot in the comments of my previous posts is that my progenitors only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and baby for my own sake, but I want to make a point about that. I can't say anything about their intentions, I know nothing about that, but I am really very excited to have a sibling. Growing up, I had a very small family. It was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side, I had a huge family with aunts, uncles, and cousins, but whenever I went there, I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and invited me for Easter, Christmas, BBQs, and stuff, but I didn't really know them, and although they were nice, I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said, "That kid John had in high school." I can't wait to have a sibling and love them, and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be that person they can always rely on for them, and I want to feel that bond with someone, so even if I have my misgivings about my parents, and I do, a lot, I do not about being a big brother. I hope this is the last update and there is no more family drama in the future. Thank you all for all your help. Having this site to air out my frustrations and having a community to back me up and give me feedback has been amazing, and you truly have helped me out a lot to deal with all of this, so really thank you so much. Update. Post 3. Hi everyone. I posted a few months back about my situation, and I just saw someone put my story in TikTok LOL, so I checked back this account and saw that I still had some notifications asking for an update, so here it is. Well, first of all, my grandparents are as cool as ever. I have not moved, nor I intend to, and we spent Christmas together. It was all great. My father and I have bonded more, and we are in a better place. He is paying for my therapy, and we've done a couple of sessions together, and we're in a much better place. He feels sorry for having lost my childhood years, but understands that I cannot get them back, and instead of pushing a relationship with me, he is letting me have my space to build as much of a relationship that I want with him, which takes the pressure off of me, TBH. We've kind of bonded over my little sister, we found out is going to be a girl, and I helped him paint the nursery and build the furniture, which I enjoyed a lot. He and my egg donor are in a bit of a weird situation. They live together, but they're not together. My father is extremely angry about everything that she did and said to me when I was little, and what I related in my previous post, and he is weary about what kind of person she really is going to be with my baby sister. They are going to couples therapy and individual therapy. And although I see her at passing because I sometimes go to my father's house, She is just barely polite with me, and I can tell she feels like I'm the one who screwed up her opportunity to play house with her second baby. I try to pay her no mind, but the only thing that worries me is if she eventually is going to poison my little sister's mind against me or subject her to a similar mistreatment like she did to me because she is also going to be born around all this tension. The silver lining is that everyone else is showing up for my little sister, and that means I've also connected much more with my father's side of the family. They've always been kind to me, but I always felt weird around them. But now that things with my father seem to be settling into a more comfortable way, I feel like I belong into his family more, and I can hang out with my cousins and aunts and uncles more. Sorry if it's not much of an update, but here's how things lay at the moment. Update post 4. So, it's been a while, but recent developments have brought me back here to give you all a bit of an update. First of all, thank you to everyone who has messaged me and shown me that my situation and I are in their minds. It helps a lot. To do a bit of recap and avoid all of you going through the entire saga my parents had me in their teens, they left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents, which turned out to be the perfect family for me. My egg donor was somewhat in my life growing up, but she was nasty and toxic to me. My dad was absent most of the time, but he was a more positive force on my life. They got together about 2 years ago and tried to make me, now 17M, move in with them, to which I refused. And they also announced they were expecting, which sent me off, and I lashed out at them. That opened the Pandora's box of lies and manipulation that my egg donor had been feeding my father for years and created an overall messy situation with her blaming me for everything. Me and my father have been developing a stronger relationship, and we've become quite close, although I still have some barriers up. My egg donor has been giving me the cold shoulder for the remainder of the pregnancy, and my father was considering whether or not to try and continue the relationship. This brings us to present times. They had a daughter named Ella who is the most beautiful, charming, and cute baby I have ever seen. My father was ecstatic when she was being delivered and asked me if I wanted to remain in the hospital during the labor, which I happily agreed to. It was amazing to see my sister for the first time, and me and my father both cried while holding her. My egg donor, on the other hand, looked at her with little care and tried to pass her off to whoever was around so she wouldn't have to hold her. The relationship of my parents at this moment was on thin ice, but the maternal spirit that my mother thought she would develop with this child never materialized. When they got home, they received dozens of visits from relatives and friends, and my dad had to take care of everything because my egg donor refused to even be near the baby. Doctors worried she must have been suffering from postpartum depression, but she refused to accept help or counsel. I tried to be gentler to her these days to ease her mental state, but things just got worse. It all came to a head a few days ago when my father went to do the groceries and saw on the nanny cam that the egg donor was cursing at Ella, and by the time he made it home, my mother was actually doing physical action to the baby. My father got furious, and she just responded by saying something along the lines of, "These kids are trying to keep us apart. We should get rid of them." My father called the police and had my mother forcibly taken to have a psych evaluation. I rushed to his side when I got wind of it. Lucky my sister is all right. While my egg donor was in the psych evaluation, my father decided that she could no longer live under the same roof as her, and she had to take my sister away from her mother. I came up with the plan that when my mother was released, she could go rest and start treatment at my grandparents', while I would move with my father for a while to help him out and avoid drama. Ironically, all of this started because I didn't want to live with my dad, and now that's where I am. My grandparents keep me updated on my egg donor's progress. There are days where she feels truly ashamed of what she did and wants to go back to my dad, others where she is lethargic and unresponsive, and others where she seems happy and content and talks about a clean slate. There would be a court proceeding over the custody of Ella, but we've gotten some sort of emergency ruling granting my dad full custody at the moment. Anyway, things are a bit of a mess, and I wish things hadn't turned out the way they have. Hopefully, I will still be able to be around my sister, and whatever is happening to my egg donor can be addressed so she can get better. My grandparents are so destroyed with all that is happening with their daughter that they are having a hard time to cope, but they come nearly every day to check on Ella and I, which is nice. My dad is also very distraught, and even though he is now categorically rejecting the idea of ever getting back together with an egg donor, he still feels sad to see how a mother can treat her baby, and he is mourning the relationship and the life he thought he would have. On my part, I've been busy with school, and even though I try to understand that my mother is sick, I can't seem to forgive her for what she's done to Ella. If this was her first incident of being negligent or violent, I might be more understanding, but I feel like she is going to be as toxic to my sister as she has always been to me, and I don't want her near us for a second.